Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our September EstimateRocket Success Webinar. Host, co-founder of EstimateRocket, a powerful software tool that you can access from anywhere to estimate, follow up automatically, manage clients, projects, and schedules. Your whole team's connected to one platform that keeps customers happy, home on time for dinner. During our webinar today, if you have any questions, there's a question box, and I encourage you to type your questions in there. We'll probably get to them at the end of the webinar, but maybe some of them will get taken during the process of the webinar. Sometimes you may want some feedback as we're going through the presentation, so don't hesitate to put your answers there. For today's the Success Webinar, I'd like to welcome guest presenters Brian Nolan and Andrew Amrhein. And Brian's the managing partner of the Nolan Consulting Group. And both Brian and Andrew are business coaches for the Nolan Group. Formed in 2003, the Nolan Consulting Group works with over 130 contractors nationally, and with revenues ranging from $300,000 to over $30 million a year. One of their primary focuses on developing high-performance teams and sales leaders. Both Brian and Andrew have extensive business and sales experience coaching in their Summit Group program and on an individual and peer basis. So today is very timely. It's about their highly effective cascading planning process. Say that 3 times fast. It's a systematic approach that creates clear goals, employee engagement, and it exponentially increases a company's chances of achieving their vision. With that, I am going to turn the presentation over to Brian and Andrew, and I'd like to thank you guys for being here today. Forward to this. It's something that's not only timely for all of our customers, but certainly is always timely to me as well. This will probably get me juiced up to get going on the 2020 plan. So, Brian and Andrew.
Thanks, Tom. So I'm Brian.
How you doing? I'm Andrew.
Welcome, Andrew. You know, when it starts getting a little colder out or the days getting shorter, you know it's time to start planning. As I reflect on the success of companies we've worked with for 15 years, I think the number one thing that makes them successful is making planning a core function, not just something they do now and again. As Andrew and I would say, it's about the planning process. The planning process is more important than the plan. So I call it cascading planning process because you need to cascade it down to every level of the company. Every employee has a line of sight to your vision. So we like to start our talks with this little picture. Are you stuck? This is, does everything run through you? And did you start your business with a vision that you wanted to be something, have something, and then all of a sudden everything ran through you? You may be the estimator, you may be the bookkeeper, you may be the field manager, you may be answering phones at nighttime, maybe you're the only one that answers problems. And so what we hope to do in this conversation today is present to you a planning process that we hope you can instill as a core function in your business to carry you towards your vision. So what's your vision? I mean, it really starts there. And I know a lot of companies that I work with, like, yeah, I'm just tired, man. It all runs through me. This isn't what I thought it was going to be. I'm my own worst boss. And so I came from a large corporate world. And by the way, Nolan Painting now is our partner. So my brother, Kevin Nolan, is the partner in Nolan Consulting Group. They run a residential and commercial painting business doing about $12 million a year. And I remember when he started planning, it was 1998. And he said by 2001, we're going to be $3 million. And he wrote a business plan as part of the residential forum of the PDCA. And since then, he hasn't missed a year of planning. Every year he has a vision and he has his team involved. And so it's a vision of a business that doesn't depend upon you. Maybe that's it. Maybe you want to sell it. Maybe you want to just cash flow it. Maybe you just don't want it. Maybe you want more balance. I actually just had lunch with a gentleman an hour ago, and he said I could use his example. He's selling his business January 1st. He's actually selling it to one of his employees, but he's got the systems in place that the employee wants to buy it That feels good. So we're talking about involving your team in a planning process, okay? Not just you. Maybe someday you'll have a team, you'll have an operations manager, a sales manager, a finance person. Right now, we would like you to involve, though, your team in what we're going to call the 7 elements of the planning process. And remember, I said it's a core function, which means it happens all the time. As we head into October, we want you to begin thinking about the planning meetings, and I'm going to talk about that shortly.
Just a quick note. So, maybe you have people on your team that maybe aren't ready to participate fully, or maybe you're not sure. Maybe they're at the point where they might contribute. Maybe they need to be listening. Maybe you need to be exposing them to these things. So maybe it's just a sharing meeting. Maybe it is a little bit more of you talking and them listening, but it won't be. If you start there, give it a routine, give it a couple years, or a couple meetings, and your team will be participating.
And so we're talking about budget meetings, quarterly reviews, financial reviews monthly, what we refer to finally as the OTB meeting, on the business meeting, because a lot of you work in the business, and we have recommended agenda for on the business meetings. We're talking about individual development plans for your people. The biggest mistake I see companies making is they grow their company, but they don't grow their people.
No leader left behind.
And so they grow too fast, and maybe their bookkeeper can't become a financial manager, or maybe their crew leader can't become a field manager.
Or if we don't get ahead of it, it's too late. And now, if we can start now and start building those tasks and building that training, then they can keep up with the growth of the company.
I said earlier, every employee should have a line of sight to the vision, where they could see where they can make a difference. They can see where you're going, and they can say, I want to develop there. Nolan Painting brought in one guy about 25 years ago, Steve, who came in as an apprentice. He is now their CFO, Chief Financial Officer. And it is just a great story how he was also a sales guy at one point. He was a crew leader at one point. He's held every job in the company except president. And really, if you asked him, he would say, well, I just always listened to Kevin's vision, and I wanted to ride towards that. And then there's number 7, which is staying connected. It's the one-on-ones. And so let's get started with the annual planning meeting. So every year, team, we're going to suggest to you that you write your vision. What's your vision? It's a desired future state. We like to use 3 years out, because 3 years, this next year is the first year of that 3-year journey. It's not a dream. It's a future state. It's B to A. We're gonna pretend we're at B, and we're gonna illuminate the path backwards now. It's a page and a half or so, and we're gonna suggest that you read it to your company to engage them. And that's gonna kick off your planning process.
Three things a vision needs to be, which is clear, compelling, and credible. Where are you leading your team to? Where is it you want to go? And I think I have some owners that you're like, well, what if they don't want to go with me? If they do, they want to go with you.
Don't find people who will.
Right. Sharing people your vision, it can be uncomfortable at first and feel a little vulnerable, but where's this ship headed? Are we going to Boston, or are we going to the Bahamas?
Yeah.
Which one?
Yeah. And remember before I showed that picture of your head in the sand? Every now and then you look up and you're like, am I getting any closer? And so I always say that you can have, because as long as you know your vision, the important thing is to know what you want and make that be a compass. A sales team, do you want a sales team? What do you want? The core purpose and values, so critical to your culture. As I tell people all the time, the older I get, the more I appreciate that there's nothing more important than culture in my business, nothing, because culture breeds profitability. So we're talking about deliberately writing down your values, sharing your values, firing people if they don't meet your values.
A lot of times, I think this gets underappreciated, but I think, or maybe people think the core purpose and values, it just feels kind of silly. But I got to tell you, when you have a core purpose that hits to the heart of what you're trying to accomplish, so our core purpose is getting owners out of the hourglass. And every day we come to work saying,
Where's my hourglass?
we're going to get owners out of the hourglass.
Out front.
So what is it? What is it your people are coming to work every day doing? It's your uniting force. And you probably already know it, and it doesn't have to be rainbows and flowers. And it's something very simple that everybody does every day.
Yeah, so our values are wisdom, engagement, adaptability, responsiveness, effectiveness, accountability, and team. I had a team last year because teams win. And I demand engagement, and so that's part of it.
We often use those in decision making.
All the
So I
time.
say, can we adapt here? That's one of our values is
Right.
adapting. So are you using them every day?
Yeah, because we work with all trades, right? So we adapt. We work with all kinds of styles. And so the first part you really involving your team is this SWOT. This is where we say cover your belly button, but you've got to bring a small group of people in to work through on a flip chart your strengths, the business's weaknesses, as they all see it, opportunities and threats. I do that, and every year it's uncomfortable for me as a business owner, but I learn a lot. And then we're going to talk about big rocks, which are the 3 to 5 things you're going to get done and the action items associated with them, and the dashboard.
And those things get clear.
Yeah.
Through the SWOT, you develop what the big rocks are.
You do. That's right. What do we have to? So the SWOT is going to be what's going to help us or prevent us from reaching that vision. So, for instance, the absence of a training program, or the absence of a solid recruiting program where we recruit like we market. So, market recruiting would be a big rock, and you can't have too many big rocks. So I always put I actually write my big rocks on big rocks and keep them by my desk to make sure I'm not getting caught in the sand. Then your dashboard really defines winning and losing, and it needs to be looked at all the time. It's your key performance indicators. And so these are the sort of key elements of a plan.
3 to 5 at a company level for a team.
Yeah, probably more like 5. You want to, and you want to share those broadly. You want people to know your revenue goals, your sales goals, and we're talking about this system applying a company we started working with in 2007. It was doing $2.7 million and is now over 30 million through a very deliberate planning process versus a chaotic when things are slow. What should I do?
You did hear us correctly. We did say share revenue goals. Now,
You did say that.
we need to get to that point. Until everybody can see what it is everybody's efforts are doing, which is revenue. And this is the place where we all get to have jobs. And a lot of times that's what it is, right? This is the everybody keeps their job goal.
Yeah, that's right.
You may not be there now, but we need to work towards that kind of culture.
So I'm going to ask you who's on your team immediately where you're sharing things with. So I have 3 people on my executive team. It's Andrew and Catherine, and they care as much about the business as I do. And so the first step here is don't go it alone. You need 1 to 2 people if you're a vision of something bigger than just working in the business all the time.
We're sharing the insomnia.
They are, and we share reward. It's a shared success model. So this annual planning meeting, like we're going to have 2 full day sessions. We have them scheduled. The first one I think is October 31st, and then
October. So this may be a couple of meetings. You may not be able to get it all done in one meeting. That leads us to our next slide. Okay, you had a SWOT meeting, great ideas. How the heck are we going to pay for all this? We've got to put a spending plan together. So people think of a budget as a one-time thing, and it sits on the shelf and collects dust. But I need you to think of this as planning how you're going to spend your revenue, right? We have this goal. We want to get up to X amount of employees in the field. That's going to generate X revenue. How are we going to spend it? What are our profit goals going to be by the end of the year if we do meet those spending goals? What expenses are going to have to be added to achieve those revenue goals? And maybe if you ask yourself, what do you want to grow? Maybe revenue is not it. Maybe it's the what that I want to grow is some individuals on my team. Maybe revenue isn't the first focus. Maybe the what of what I want to grow is myself. Maybe I want to grow my own sales skills, or maybe I want to grow someone on my team, or maybe I just want to improve my marketing. And if that happens to grow, great. If we don't, what's the minimum amount that would need to happen in order to pay for it all? So it doesn't have to be top line that we focus on. It can be anything. That tends to be the easiest one. So we're creating a spending plan, and we're creating a roadmap that we can follow all year long and know that is the ship still on course for the Bahamas, or have we veered off course for cold Newfoundland? Where are we headed? At this point, after you've put a budget together, and again, your focus can be the overhead team part. It doesn't have to be a revenue growth, whatever it is you're growing in your team. At this point, you may want to circle back to the planning meeting that you have and actually have a third meeting to bring together the budget and the big rocks and solidify that as a team into now what the final big rocks and KPIs are together.
I think the budget is sort of an underappreciated tool. People go, why? And we happen to be pretty big in finance, the two of us. I'm on a mission to make the contracting business predictable, like predictable revenue. I want to cookbook things. I want to understand my indicators. And we've seen when you focus on your numbers, predictability happens. And numbers tell a story. The budget is writing the story. We're going to write the story before it happens. And then we want to live the story.
So here's the pushback I get. You tell me if you get this. I get this all the time. Two main things. I don't know the future. How can I possibly have it?
Get that? Yeah.
How do I know? How could I possibly? Well, take a guess, right?
Make the future.
If you want to predict the future, make it. Number two is, I just, what I do is I push hard every day. I just do the most I can do every day. So in the first scenario, you're flying blind. I have no clue where I stand. In the second scenario, I'm just a slave driver. I don't know where to win. So all I do is I push. The more we can do, and I'm never satisfied. So where is winning, and what does winning look like? And am I on track with it? It doesn't have to be complicated, but I can tell you it is so powerful to watch it happen, especially this time of year, right? Because now we're getting close to the end, and everybody's getting pretty excited about we're actually going to hit this goal. Okay, so you met, you had a team SWAT meeting, you took that information, you made a budget out of it, you got together again to solidify what the big rocks and big sort of KPIs that you're going to measure for the year. Now we come back to we start the cadence of planning all year long, and it starts with a quarterly company review, and that quarterly review is where we're going to break your big rocks down into chewable pieces. We like to say, eat the elephant one piece at a time. In the 90-day or the quarterly review, the outcome of this, so why am I here? The outcome of this meeting needs to be clear steps that will be followed. So the question you're asking yourself is, in 90 days, when we get together again, what will we have done?
If we only do 3 things that will move us closer to our vision, let's make sure we keep the main thing, and know those 3 things. This is the biggest problem we see in small businesses, is chasing the squirrel, chasing the shiny lure. That if you're a fisherman and this thing, you go after something else. But discipline is remembering what you want, and this plan focuses on the few things you're going to get done. darn it, we're going to put a training program in place this quarter, no matter what.
Now, what I see most, I think what we've learned over the years is that the number one FTI, failure to implement issue, is a clear next step.
Mm-hmm.
In your 90-day meetings, I'm going to bring up, so the outcome of this meeting is a clear 90-day plan. Think about this when you approach a project. When you walk up to a house, either a remodel or maybe it's a landscape project. I know we have multiple types of contractors on the line. If I'm gonna paint the exterior of a house, and I've got myself and 3 other guys, our 4-man crew, I don't just send everybody out and say, okay, go do to-dos. Just go at it. That's a recipe for disaster, right? Because now everybody's all over the place. The first thing I do is set up a sequence. Where are we going to start? Where are we going to finish? Step 1, we're going to focus on the windows on the front. Then we're going to go to the east side. Then we're going to go to the back. Then we're going to go to the west side, and we'll be finished. These 90-day plans, one of the biggest challenges I see is step back from the to-dos and focus on the steps in the sequence. So the easiest example is, let's say you want to hire a sales rep. Okay, 4 easy steps. Write a job description, place the ads, make interviews, make a hire. Those are 4 steps. There are lots of to-dos along the way, but clearly outline the 4 steps. And so this quarter, are all 4 steps going to get done? That's the question. Begin your projects, break your big rocks down into the steps it's going to take to implement it. So maybe you're looking at a new CRM. Okay, so the steps there are going to be evaluate what you want, gather options, review those options, make a decision. 4 steps. Think in terms of steps, and then assign those steps dates. And what I find, Brian, you tell me, is I think when people think of these plans, they think they can accomplish more than they actually can. When they break projects down into steps first, they realize how long it's going to take. So in the first quarter, maybe you just get the first 2 steps done. You evaluate what it is you want out of a CRM, and you gather options so that when we get together in the next 90 days, we have 5 options.
So those steps need to be calendared. We like to use the term focus time to work on your business. And you've got to take some time and protect it. Protect your focus time from your have-tos. Don't always be, so you're always doing, your have-tos are to prevent pain. Your want-tos are to get the gain. And you've got to calendar your want-tos in order to get the gain. It's just like working out. It's like anything you do. We're talking about, this is all about winning the game, by the way. This whole process is about how do you win the game of business. And this 90-day plan is your quarterly milestone for what we are going to accomplish. And we share it with the companies that people know.
You've got to see it happen before it happens.
Got to.
Lay out the steps. We don't take that kind of risk in business, right? We lay out the plan. So what I would say is every 90 days, get together and focus on steps, not necessarily the to-dos. What's the sequence of this project that's going to happen? So you've done that. You get together, you lay out what's the sequence of steps we're going to take to achieve the outcome. I can focus I can focus on that one step at a time. Forgive me one moment. I'm going to jump out of our presentation because I noticed Yoda was covering up the key part of our presentation.
It's not.
So collect dust, a meaningful budget does not. I hope you don't mind. I threw in some Star Wars there. I couldn't help myself. So going back to what we said, every single month, where do you stand against the goal? Am I on track? Am I off track? Are we overachieving? On the expense level, are expenses unfolding the way we thought? Then look through the windshield. I mean, really, right, Brian? I mean, we would say a lot of people don't spend enough time looking through the windshield saying, if I want, whatever it is, if I need to have 13 guys by July and it's March, I need to start recruiting now.
So I just finished a whole round of calls to review August numbers, right? How are they? And half the call is then used to project September and predicting September. Are we going to budget numbers? How many workers, how many feet on the street do we need to hit those? So getting better at projecting based upon historical variance down in a pretty big way.
Here's the key question. Every month when you're reviewing numbers, you're looking at your P&L, you're looking at budget versus actual. The question I need you asking yourself is, what behaviors or actions took place to make? I need a passionate connection between behaviors and the financial results it achieves.
If your GP was budgeted at 42% and you're coming in at 37%, we've got to figure out which crew leaders are messing up. Is there a lot of unbillable time? What kind of jobs are not our sweet spot jobs? We've got to have a conversation about that gap of 5 points, which on a $5 million business is considerable.
Make no mistake, we want you to meet every month for an outcome, and that outcome is to affect your behaviors and the behaviors of your team. Are they clear about the most profitable behaviors that they have every month?
Every month, though, you do want, and some of our customers have 2 times a month, they have the OTB meeting, where it's an hour and a half long. They do a quick segue, successes and challenges, quickly look at their dashboard. If there's anything off, they put that down in the issue discussion. They look at their big rocks, see if they're on track. If they're off track, they put that down in the issue discussion. The issue discussion is the longest part that addresses anything to take them off track. We call them IDSs, identify, discuss, and solve, and coming up with new to-dos. If you're the owner on this company, on this call, and you can invite 2 or 3 other people to join you in an on-the-business meeting, you will sleep better at night. People are sharing the insomnia.
And remember, we're not rehashing the whole year. We're just looking at right now the 90-day plan. What have we accomplished? How do we get back on track?
That's right. Mm-hmm. And then the IDPs.
So here we got to circle back to who in your company is a lifer, or who do you want to be a lifer? Are they keeping up with growth? And if you're following this process, then you're starting to look into the future and what skills do they need to have? Can we get ahead of that? What training do they need? What feedback do they need in order to perform in their role? Just an honest question. Are they even aware that you have these plans for them?
Right.
That in your mind, you see them in this way? I think it's fair even for myself, between you and I don't know that I saw around the corner for me the way you saw around the corner for me, and you exposed me to that. And of course, it was like, duh.
But often as leaders, we don't share that, or we don't take the time to say, I'm going to go here, and I want to bring you with me. I want you to become the finance content leader, right, for us. And so I'm going to send you to a class. Andrew got his MBA through our company. And so that was great. That just gave me goosebumps. Actually,
that was
fun.
Goosebumps.
It's true. Fun. Yeah, I mean, it's so really, if you want to get out of the hourglass, you've got to take the time to identify the key people and bring them with you.
You know, people have their own plans, and they have their own flight plan for their life. And you know, when you're steering a speedboat, you can turn quick, but when you're steering someone's life, you know, that's a 747, and that takes some time to steer. That's a big boat. So when you preview these things for your people, you give them a chance to go home and sleep on it and say, you know, I didn't see that happening, but I can see how that'll work in my life. You're giving them time to change the direction of their boat.
This is the cascading piece that's most important. And you're cascading this down, because if they're a key person, then they're going to cascade it down below them. And that's like being in a boat and everybody's rowing in sync the same way towards this vision that you have.
So much of it is what another coach of ours, Steve Talkington, likes to say, or prepping the battlefield, or letting people see the runway, prepping them for what's going to happen in the future.
And then, so you've done these plans.
Mhm.
This is not just a once a year meet with you. This is not even a once every 6 months performance review. This is a staying connected meeting. So the staying connected one-on-ones, we have actually a more formal agenda than this, but you want to schedule this where you're reviewing how we're doing, how you're doing against your KPIs, because if we have KPIs, you've got some elements of those KPIs that meet up to them. You asking them what's getting in the way of hitting your goals, how can I help? And then new to-dos. So this is a really critical piece of not going off course. And this is making sure your people are engaged. You know, the IDP, and this one-on-ones, this is your measurement of engagement. I don't know about other owners in the room, but when I walk into my office, I feel engagement and I feel disengagement, and I don't tolerate disengagement. I mean, if you don't want to work here, let's have that conversation. We're too small not to have someone engaged.
People show engagement in different ways, so that things like this, and some people are a little more reserved, other people show it, all over them, but somehow they've got to be engaged.
And this is getting at it. Are you engaged towards the vision? Are we developing you? Are we helping you become the best version of yourself? And it's investing time in these people that matters. And so, the question here really is, are you ready to take ownership of your job, your career, and your life to make planning a core function in your business, not just something you wished you did or because your bank asked you for a business plan? So this is what we do. We do business plans. I want to show you a picture of our cascading planning process. Andrew, help me find that here. I opened it up here. Hang on one second. What do you think that is? Help me find it. Is it here? No, not here.
Uh-oh, where'd it go? There it is.
There it is. So this is a more formal rendition of we have what we call a CPP booklet that gets at what you want to be doing. We're talking about spinning this wheel towards your goal. And if there's anybody on the call that would like to work with Nolan Consulting Group, we would love for you to give us a call. And I've given our emails here, and Andrew or I could assist you. We'd like to open up the call. Tom, if you're with us, we want to make sure there's time for questions here. Maybe you have a question, Tom.
Yeah, I actually have at least a comment. Just personally speaking, I know we have quite a few customers of EstimateRocket that are very happy with what you guys do for them, and it's a very necessary process. And if you're not doing this, somebody else is. Your competition is, and it's really something that's important to every single business that exists. And I can't recommend enough that you seek out that, and design and get your business process in place, because it's really a critical part. And I know that Andrew and Brian do a great job doing that for their customers, and I've met with many of them.
I want to make sure people know sort of where we have several programs. So there's a summit, which is a national peer group of contractors, and we also that's our full program. We do coaching, and they're part of peer grouping and financial benchmarking. We also offer just coaching if someone just wants to just have a one-on-one coaching, or if someone just wants a 3-month planning contract to get their business kickstarted with our CPP.
So on that note, one question I'll ask is the implementation of it. Bite off what you can chew, right? Right. It can be overwhelming to do the whole thing, and the whole thing, you might work towards in building your team. So bite off the pieces that work for you. If you had 2 people that you could share with, even if it's just to come together and brainstorm how to get better. You know, one meeting, there was many years ago, Kevin still tells the story that their operations meeting now started as 5 of them sitting around on 5-gallon buckets, discussing how to make the business better. So maybe that's where you start, but pick a place, bite off an amount that you can chew and start there.
I see a comment on here from Frank Capinelli. Frank's a Connecticut contractor, great guy. Frank was actually the first guy that took a chance on me as a consultant. I want to thank you for that. I was about 16 years ago.
Great to see you again, Frank.
That's awesome. Can we address anybody else have any comments? We wanted to make sure we just didn't talk for 50 minutes. We wanted to leave time for comments and questions. And
on the GoToMeeting panel, there should be a chat or question function. So anything at all, if you have any questions about planning, maybe you think we're totally nuts to share this stuff with your team, let us know. We've heard that before.
Well, we do
need spell check. Yes, there's Frank tells us we need spell check. We probably got a couple.
What's changed there?
Couple errors in there.
Yeah. What's changed there? You got to proofread my stuff.
I know, right? Yeah, I mean, I don't know who out there thinks we're nuts. Maybe this is a totally foreign concept. The question is how can you work towards it? Because sharing means you trust each other, and we can't go anywhere without trust.
Yeah, so we actually follow a transparent process with respect to financial goals with our key players, and believe that that awareness creates a common goal that everybody goes to. And everybody in my company here, and there's 12 of us, where everybody's bonused on results. And it's big here. And so I have 11 other people worried about it, not just me. And that feels really good.
That's true.
Yeah, that feels really good.
Make no mistake, giving good advice pays our mortgage, so we're not going to give bad advice.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things about the approach that you guys have, and everybody here, there are obviously a lot of different approaches to this. But I think one of the unique things is that you guys, with the 90-day plan approach, makes it a lot more approachable to get started with than okay, let's plan the whole year. What are we going to do this whole year concept, which some people start with. And I think, especially if this is a new business process to you, this approach makes it chewable, because it's not, you're doing things that are going to take place over the next 3 months, and you're going to be able to measure them and track them over the 3 months. And it's not always the big things, these things that seem like they're crazy, that make the successes. It's the block by block improvements that you make to get to some goal.
Yeah, thank you for that. Actually, if there's one slide here that we would say is the most important, it's this slide. It's the 90-day rock. It's take 3 months and say, what am I going to get done in 3 months?
Right.
And it's one page that you keep with you all the time, and it needs to guide your actions. It needs to guide your actions. When you think in a given day, what should I do next? Don't just react to something. Proact towards what you want to do. And again, my favorite quote is, discipline is remembering what you want. And this is what you want. Now have the discipline to remember it.
Yeah. You did have a question come in there. You guys have that on the?
Oh yeah. Okay, Andrew, how do I?
When you mention sharing the information on revenue goals, is this something that you would even share with field crews to orient them towards a common goal, or would you just distill the idea down for something else sensitive to share? So, Brian, you'll add your thoughts here. I think I acknowledge that comfort levels are different with different people, but I can tell you the best companies that implement goals can stand in a meeting with the entire company and say, team, what's our goal? And they all say 8 million or 2 million or 5 million or whatever that goal is, all at the same time. So
And
that's
then-
what we're working towards.
And then to get specific
Mhm.
to your answer, Krista, Nolan Painting has revenue goals by crew leader. So they'll take their $12 million and they break that up by a month. Obviously, it's seasonal, right? And then within the month, they actually allocate how much revenue they want each crew leader to do based upon the size of their crews. And then they get a performance bonus if that revenue's hit. And so there's great awareness and then shared success in doing that.
That may be something you can implement now. That may be something you need to work towards. But it definitely happens.
Yeah.
And the trust that happens and the camaraderie that happens around people getting out of their comfort zones, people being okay sharing, do people, for lack of a better phrase, but people sometimes get butthurt when they don't hit their goals and maybe things aren't going right. But through that comes working with them and helping them change and helping them have new behaviors. So there's so many great things that happen.
But so who wrote the book Ownership Thinking again?
Ownership Thinking was Brad.
So
Man.
Ownership Thinking is a book that I would recommend because Ownership Thinking does talk about this specific thing and how you get others thinking like an owner. Imagine if you had a team of people thinking like an owner.
I will say you have to have engagement before you implement PFP. If you're implementing PFP as a way to get engagement, that's not going to work. That's backwards.
Yeah.
You've got to have culture before you do PFP.
Yeah. Thanks, Krista, for bringing that question back up in a more detailed manner. Other questions? We'll be here all day.
You mentioned culture. Is culture something that you guys also can work with companies on? Because I know that's another subject that I hear from some of the other customers that we work with that, and even I struggle with it, is, what does that mean? I know I have my ethics and my work ethics and how I try to project things, but sometimes it's difficult to put those down in a way that you feel is shareable.
Yeah. So culture now is right up there after vision in our second goal. We like to do what we call values matrix and chart performance versus values, and where you may have a high performer, low values, you got a prima donna. And so we've got to address this for your leadership to be sharp. You've got to address the prima donna because everybody's watching how you handle culture. And so values and the individual development plan really help to make culture work, because the IDP is about making people the best version of themselves. Mm-hmm. And the best culture is when someone feels engaged and listened to. And so if you bring the values and you bring an IDP and you care about their growth, you've got the recipe for profitability. Mm-hmm. So,
good question. Any other? So it's 2:45. We've got one here. Krista,
any books that you recommend that you would improve the engagement factor?
Krista, thanks for your questions.
Well,
you want to rattle them off?
Well, the Culture Code is the new one that's out.
Culture Code's great in terms of influencing a culture and how a leader can influence culture. Question behind the question, QBQ, in terms of what your employees ought to be reading. QBQ, Ownership Thinking.
Extreme Ownership.
Extreme Ownership.
Extreme Ownership is about how the Navy SEALs do it.
Dichotomy of Leadership would be a book that, as a leader, you can read that. 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. You got to yourself and 2 other people have to read 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by the end of the year.
But I would start with the Culture Code, because all of our guys now are reading that and they're digging it. I'm just looking to see if I can, on my Kindle, on my phone. That's the one that you want to read probably first. So, book, Culture Code, David. Oh, I almost had it there. Let's see, can you read that? David?
Daniel Coy.
Daniel Coy, the Culture Code. Yeah.
All right, we got another question coming in from Mario. Thank you, Mario. You mentioned that you have a physical rock with your goals on your desk. What other ways to constantly communicate the company to the entire staff?
I got this.
What do you do to prevent from chasing the shiny lure?
Okay, well, so there's my big rock, right? I got a practice leadership. So Andrew's my practice leader in finance, and I got vision because that's a big rock that I have. But I also believe in a situation room or a situation board. Outside my office is a situation board. All the team sees it. It's got the big rocks and it's got my critical KPIs. Everybody sees it. I see it. We have budget and actual for the 3 months that we're on. That is a major takeaway. Create a situation wall where you can huddle around how we're doing against those goals.
And then I would say, don't worry about falling off the horse. The question is, what's the one next best thing you can do? So that was, who wrote Decide?
Steve McClatchy.
McClatchy,
that's a good book.
Another great book, Decide. You know, okay, you're going to fall off the horse when it comes to chasing the shiny lure. Commit to getting together at least once a month to get back on the horse. That's how you solve the shiny lure. Because Mario, you're right. I mean, there are 500 things going on every day. And, you know, it's hard as leaders to stay focused. Imagine how hard it is for your employees. Just commit every month to get together, and you will fall off the horse, but you will fall off the horse a lot less over time, and you will see yourself making improvement. And just get back on the horse. What's the one next right thing I can do? Just get back on the horse.
Yeah. So you need to calendar this stuff. That's the most important thing you could do is put on your calendar working on the business time and on the business meetings. So you don't wake up after a couple of years and go, what am I doing? I feel like I'm working harder. I've grown my business, but I'm not making as much money even, and I'm exhausted.
A way to avoid the shiny lure, don't let great get in the way of done.
Right.
You know, running a business is different from producing work. There's only one way to install Windows. It's either right or it's wrong. There's only one way to, grade a yard. It's either right or it's wrong. But running a business, I got to tell you, a lot of times, good enough is good enough. Don't let perfect get in the way of good enough.
A good job today is better than a perfect job tomorrow.
When it comes to running a business, often producing work, well, you know, standards are standards. But running your business is not the same as producing work. Don't let perfect get in the way of good enough. And
thanks, Mario, for bringing that question to the table.
Yeah, an old colleague who used to work at Raytheon used to say, sometimes you just got to shoot the engineers and get it into production.
That's good.
Well, I mean, we have members here that the meeting isn't going to be quite right. I'll do it next week, or maybe the vision is not quite perfect yet. I'll read it to them later, or I don't know how to give the person feedback, so I'll do it next week. There's any number of resistance and excuses that we make, and that's the part where done is better than perfect. So just have the meeting. I know it won't be perfect, but the more you do it, the better it'll get.
Right.
Don't let perfect get in the way of done.
Definitely great advice.
Good. So do you want the hourglass, or do you want an organization? And from our experience, the only way towards an organization is through a cascading planning process that involves everybody in there, so people feel it's a career, not just a job, particularly in today's wage market. I think that's important.
Be sure to check out our YouTube page for lots of clips and information from our podcast. You can see that information there. And so on YouTube, Nolan Consulting Group on YouTube, you can check out more, as well as on our website. Sign up for our blog to get information and give us a call.
And Frank Caponelli, I think it's time for your annual plan. We look forward to your call next week to get started. All right, Tom. It looks like that's a wrap.
All All right. Well, thank you guys. That was a great presentation. As always, I know there's a bunch of takeaways here from me as well, and I hope everybody got a lot of benefit out of it. I'm sure they did. The most important thing is just start planning, and these guys can really help you. This presentation has been recorded, so we'll have that up in a couple days. So we'll be sending out a link to that just in case you want to rewatch it, or you have some team members that you want to have. And I'd like to thank you all for attending today. Andrew, Brian, really thank you for appreciate you guys doing this for us. I know it helps our customers a lot. And I'd like to thank everybody who attended today. And we look forward to seeing you for our next Success webinar.
Hey, thanks a lot, Tom. We're big supporters of what you do, and EstimateRocket has been a great value to our customers. It really has.
Awesome. Great to hear.
Cheers.
Thanks,
Good night.
everybody.
Bye.